Instead of focusing on corporate finance where you think how much security the company can bring in, that project can generate. You see the return that project can get. Whether the project is viable on its own or not. What is the point of bringing in infrastructure projects if you're going to ask for corporate guarantees and land securities?
Textile is one of the sectors where Africa can play an important role. We cannot today, we don't have the capacity to compete with Bangladesh or Vietnam or some.
Will come to Africa. Our president did that, President Buhari. He traveled over the US, Europe, hoping to get private investors to come in. It didn't happen. The World Bank had to step in, the IMF had to step in. The condition was this: we will give you the money you want at all, but you have to float your currency. Now he's scratching his head, I don't know. You mean we should value our naira? No, it's like float your currency. Because what the government was doing, going all the way back to the past dictators, was to prop up our currency with our scarce reserve. In other words, the revenue we get from oil, a vast portion of it was used to prop up the naira. There's no good reason why 1 naira in the 70s should be going for $2. How do you explain that? Not because our economy was stronger than the US economy. No, it was because we're using our oil reserves to prop up the naira. Why? So that those who are able to have access to naira could buy things cheaply abroad. And that was it. It did not help the country. It did not help the individuals. Well, our education system was very good when I left the country in the 70s. But what happened? When the dictators came in, and to be a good dictator, the first thing you need to do is to decimate the intelligentsia. And they did that because you don't want any intelligent opposition. And today we're paying the price. Our universities are not up to power. So, how do we attract businesses to Africa? Well, begin by making drastic changes. We had a summit in Abuja in May on national security. Our guest speaker, very eloquent, Anders Rasmussen, the former NATO boss here in the EU. And he spoke eloquently about the need to first stabilize the situation. Just like any good emergency room doctor will do. You bring in a patient in an ambulance, in an emergency room, the first thing you do is to stabilize the patient and then find out what's wrong. First, we need to stabilize the country in terms of violence. Today, you have pipes being blown apart. National Guard that is supposed to go to Ghana to run their turbines, and they're getting there. And that brings me to the important point. That there is no good reason why, in this day and age, we don't have constant electricity power. It costs Africa 2% of its GDP every year because we don't have a steady state supply of electricity. And if you're looking for the sector to invest, that is the sector to invest, in my opinion. sustainable energy, you have abundance of all these things you need. Wind, solar, gas, natural gas, not to mention fossil fuel. Why don't you have 24-hour electricity? What's the problem? Well, I'll tell you the problem. Nigeria has a capacity of 12,500 megawatts. That is its total capacity, with 26 plants to generate electricity. And those 26 plants are powered by 140 turbines. That's the capacity.
Carbon credit, which we're offering funds but have difficulties with the governments of Africa. Again, partly, well, there's a number of reasons for it. These pictures are, almost all of these, except for one, which is a good friend of mine, are from my trips to Africa. In particular, these ones are from Ghana, where I just came back from Ghana, where we launched over 5 projects. One of them was to help prisoners return back into society. And we're creating jobs for those people. There are some high-level objectives. And the core ones are we're developing in-country knowledge. Some of the speakers have talked about this before, but it's critical to BICA that we work with people in the country who don't just listen to people like me, but they actually are able to do things themselves and to invent their own solutions. But it takes time. We provide domain knowledge. BICA is a little bit strange in that I have experts working with BICA from all over the world. Most of the top people involved have a minimum of 20 years, 25 years, and up to 50 years of experience in their respective fields. For those of you who will listen to this presentation,
that they have been fully undertaken or undertaken. And then, I mean, the language divide is always a difficult one. Again, I mean, this map, we have some countries there that are usually the top countries attracting foreign direct investment. Around those which are attracting less, the color may vary. Have taken the same action at the same time. I mean, there are countries like Rwanda, for instance, which have for quite a number of years worked quite systematically at opening up and making quite a bit of effort to attract foreign direct investment. But it's true that in Western Africa there is still quite significant untapped potential for investment on the regulatory side.
96%. And then we also look at some other figures that say 65% of Kenyans buy new phones compared to 78% in South Africa. And then they go on to say that The top 3 forms of communication for Kenyans were text messages, that was ranked top at 64%. That could explain, mobile money transfers and things like that. Social media and voice calls followed. Voice calls are actually coming down by the day, and we're seeing more people using social media, and we're seeing more people using text messages, to communicate around the world and to do business as well. Different countries have different trends. Uganda, for instance, does more voice calls than text messages, So, and then in Kenya, it's a different story. They do more text messages than they do phone calls or voice calls. So the question would be, how do we maximize that to transform it into viable businesses? For education, how useful can mobile devices be? Professor Stevie, I'm sure, will be thinking about something like that. For businesses, in whatever businesses we are doing, in trade, how are mobile devices helping ease business transactions per se? So I'd now like to invite our next speaker, the Chief Executive Officer for Ghana Airtel. Hopefully she can share with us why investment in the telecommunications infrastructure is necessary at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me.
Access to the internet, there's more capacity than the country will probably ever need. In fact, what needs to happen is more of that capacity needs to be sold into landlocked Africa. Burkina Faso, Niger, these countries that don't have direct access. And I know there's at least one fiber project from Ghana that goes straight into Burkina Faso and Togo. There's another one that links into Cote d'Ivoire and so on. But these are the perspectives that we need to change about what the opportunities are in Africa. It's estimated that the value of investment in the industry exceeds 15 billion for 2015 alone. So, why would you invest in telecoms in Africa? I think the question should rather be, why not invest in telecoms in Africa, honestly? Because apart from all the things I have just highlighted, there are many unique attributes that make it a prized destination for telecoms investment. I'll share with you some of the new developments from a customer point of view that make Africa attractive. But before I do so, no presentation would be complete without talking about the challenges. And I talk about challenges because I think they too present investment opportunities. The challenges I see are mainly from a vendor and operator perspective, so I call them supply side challenges, which need to be transformed into investment opportunities. The first one is around power and energy to support the telecommunications industry. Of the many operational challenges faced, one of the most significant is around the power to drive the networks both on and off grid. Unreliable power supply means that operators rely on alternative sources, primarily expensive diesel, which adds to our operating cost. According to the Green Power for Mobile report, again from the GSMA in collaboration with the IFC, energy costs constitute a major chunk of network operating costs for mobile operators in Africa. The energy cost for a typical tower site constitutes at least 40% of the operating expense of that site. These additional costs cannot always be passed on to customers and is a major threat to profitability from an investment point of view. The answer to this may be green, but most definitely cheaper alternatives. In the same report, the GSMA posits that adoption of green power will reduce carbon emissions by 60 to 70% and result in an annual OPEX reduction of about $17,000 per cell site. Green power is estimated to cost about $42,000 per annum, with a return on investment of over 35% and a payback period of less than 3 years. Green power presents enormous opportunities to invest in alternative energy sources for the telecoms industry. A second challenge is around deployment topology and population density impact. You see, many investors come into Africa with models that they've imported from elsewhere without sufficiently taking into consideration the unique factors of Africa. Majority of Africans live in rural areas with limited access. According to the African Development Bank, Africa's urban population stood at 36% as at 2010, and is projected to increase to 50 and 60% respectively in 2030 and 2050. The statistics show that majority of Africans live in rural and peri-urban areas, communities, many without access to direct telecom services. Many of our rural communities are sparsely distributed, and the associated exorbitant cost of deploying conventional telecom solutions and the reduced return on investment makes it difficult to justify deployment. In addition to the cost and low ROI, the operating model of operators and their current business structure does not allow for the kind of solutions required to respond to this challenge. New models and technologies of rural deployment present new investment opportunities. Earlier this year, Mark Zuckerberg announced the intention of Facebook to deliver internet connectivity via satellite. A new and disruptive approach, but is it? In the years that I've worked in telecoms, we actually started with satellite deployment to provide internet services. And I can tell you that the cost alone was prohibitive. But beyond the operational cost, which was prohibitive, it was having to manage the skills to manage that bandwidth so tightly was out of this world. I would engage my directors on a daily basis to manage our uplink and our downlink just to ensure that we were managing cost. So it may sound disruptive, but I can assure you that we've already been there. For this model to work, the focus must be solely on communities that are not currently served by existing telecom solutions. So how competitive can that possibly be? The opportunities, therefore, are in new and unconventional profitable models to accelerate adoption and connectivity across Africa. And this is a comment I probably make about the majority of industries in Africa. We talk about investment, we talk about bringing new things to Africa. But I've seen too often, increasingly, that we bring solutions that are copy-paste from other environments that don't speak to the local environment because of insufficient participation of local know-how. I always tell a joke and tell people that I moved to work in Ghana and within the region of Africa 8 years ago, primarily because I thought I had a magic wand. I thought I knew I'd learned all these things and had all this education and experience, and I was going to show up and wave a wand and everything was going to be solved. It doesn't work like that. The truth of the matter is that as business people and investors, we need to have the humility to understand the local challenges and local problems and devise solutions with the people who are there if we are going to make a difference to Africa. The third challenge I'd like to highlight is around the evolution, the fashioning technological solutions that are suited to the challenges of Africa. The evolution of telecoms in Africa, I've already highlighted, hasn't followed the global trajectory. But what does the evolution of telecoms teach us? It is that Africa requires a different technological approach to propel a true revolution in the industry. New technologies suited to the unique challenges of the continent that go beyond a one-size-fits-all approach. You recently may have heard of, again, Google's Loon project to power in Africa with internet through balloons. Do we think that will work for Africa? Will definitely work. And that's where we have to put our energies. So I've been very transparent with you in sharing some of the challenges. I don't want it to make
first stage of the first decision stage of doing business. Like investment security, political.
Mentioned before, others have mentioned it, to create a market linkage. The market linkage we are looking at is how do we transport and move agricultural product from that local hand to as far as the European country. We want to create a kind of a linkage between the producer in the farms and the end user in Europe and in the upper city of Nigeria. Also, we want to give them responsive financial facilities that will enhance more productivities in the area of the business. And our organization is ready to do what? To build, scale, and impact positively.
Once again, my name is Joy Doreen Bira. I'm a journalist in Kenya. Thank you so much.